adoption. At the August 12th meeting, the board approved the notice of hearing provided in Appendix 1, which when published establishes the maximum amounts for the 2019-20 budget. The published notice was presented on August 15th, 2019, and the public hearing was scheduled for the beginning of tonight's meeting. This agenda item will include a presentation of the budget. The board will then have the opportunity to ask questions and discuss the budget. Following the board's adoption, the 2019-20 budget will be sent to Sedgwick County and the Kansas State Department of Education. It is recommended the board adopt the 2019-20 budget.
Welcome.
Good evening. Good evening, President Logan, Superintendent Thompson, Vice President Rohde, members of the board. That it was very appropriate that we opened tonight's Board of Education meeting talking about the impact of student success, particularly by the board, because one of the most important functions the board performs is the adoption of a budget for the next fiscal year, particularly one that reflects priorities and aligns resources under our district's strategic financial plan. And after 7 months of discussion, I think you would agree that this particular budget that we're proposing for adoption tonight does indeed reflect those goals and priorities that will help all our students achieve success. So, thank you, Dr. Wick. So tonight, as far as what we're covering related to the budget, is a very quick, high-level recap, since we've talked a lot about the budget over the past few months. But as a reminder, we are here at kind of the end of the line on the budget development process. As of tonight, we hopefully will have an adopted budget, and we will submit that to the county. We will be just a tad late, but we are still good to go. A few highlights, as we've discussed. Our base state aid increased from $41.65 to $44.36 per pupil. That's a combination of the base aid in the formula from 2 years ago and an inflation factor that we received this fiscal year. But due to declining enrollment and a lower than expected special ed reimbursement rate, reduced that increase for USD 259 from 6.5% to 5%. The district did receive, though, almost $1.9 million in additional state aid for the local option budget, also known as the Supplemental General Fund. So that will reduce our local option budget mill levy for our local taxpayer. And then our overall net proposed budget increase is 2.9% higher than last year's budget. Looking at those numbers, that means our fiscal year 19 adopted budget of $739 million increases to $761 million, or an increase in budget authority of almost a little over $21.7 million. Significant changes include an increase in capers, an increase in capital outlay, a decrease in bond and interest because we are not paying off one of the issues this year. We are on schedule. A little bit of an increase in federal funds, and then, of course, the general and supplemental general related to the base aid increase. So as a reminder where we ended up with our proposed mill levies, we are at 20 mills on the general fund, 15.848 on the supplemental general, 8 mills capital outlay, a little over 9 mills bond and interest, a little bit of an increase in special liability to 0.258 mills, with a total mill levy of 53.176, which is a decrease to the mill of 0.462. Again, looking at our mill levy history, we have really strategically planned to try as much as possible to keep this relatively even. We've had a few fluctuations due to changes in the school finance formula, but we do try to keep that relatively even. We know that's important for our taxpayers. Certainly this graph is important to note that 87% of our operating budget is focused on the direct support of students, with, of course, the bulk of it being focused on direct instruction. And then the other pieces fall from there. This is a chart that we update annually so that we do represent that our budget does reflect a focus on student support and certainly student success. A We've shown this almost from the beginning. These are identified needs under the strategic plan with a focus on accountability. Again, investing in staff with our recruitment and retention through compensation, some new teaching positions, the pre-K, expansion to challenge all learners to succeed, including the all-day pre-K pilot at 2 locations, focus on college and career readiness with continued expansion of the learning centers, supporting the whole child with some additional behavior intervention teachers, and a slight expansion to the Parents as Teachers program, and then, of course, aligning our resources with some work with assessments and research. Professional development needs specifically are surrounding the Standards Reference Grading Initiative, and some title realignment to, again, make sure that those funds are focused on the strategic plan outcomes. So tonight, we are recommending that the board adopt the budget as we've proposed, $761,329,444 net budget authority with a mill levy of 53.176 mills.
Okay, Stan?
I just had one clarifying question. So our expected increases went from 6.5 to 5, but we received the 1.9. Is that 1.9 included in that?
No, that 1.9 million is specific to state aid under the, so the LOB is calculated as a percent of the general fund. So once you calculate that, then the state provides a rate of state aid on that LOB amount. So we actually got more state aid, which means less of our property taxes needed to reach that same cap. But we don't generate new additional spending authority. It's just the state aid offsets the taxes that we need on the LOB.
So one really needs to look at those as 2 completely separate lines. One
Yes.
general fund, which is the state-based aid, and then one the LOB, what we charge our local taxpayers on their property.
There's 2 components of that LOB. There's a state aid component and a tax component. And if the state aid goes up, the tax component goes down. If the and inversely, if it goes down, then the taxes have to go up. In this case, because we have more state aid, we're able to reduce our mill levy just a little bit. But it is a line in and of itself. It is a separate budget within our budgeting process.
Okay. I thought that was the answer. I just want to clarify for the public.
Sure.
Thank you.
Ernestine?
I think you just said it. In other words, we do not raise taxes at this point. We can actually let taxes go down slightly.
We are reducing our mill levy. I would say overall, with assessed valuations going up, taxpayers are probably feeling an increase, but it would have been, they would have felt that more had we not been able to reduce the mill levy.
Okay, but we aren't.
We aren't assessing additional taxes. We're reducing our mill levy as far as the tax base is
That's
concerned.
what I needed clarified. Thank you.
Ben?
Just to clarify this, the LOB in this proposed budget is at 30%.
30%.
Okay. Because we did the thing that allows us to go to 33, but we have opted not to at this time.
That is correct.
Okay.
Okay. I think it's good that we are able to reduce slightly our mill levy. And, $761 million is a lot of money.
It's a lot of money.
So we need to be diligent in how we spend that. Mike?
I'll make the motion that we accept the budget as read.
I second it.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor made by Mike and seconded by Ernestine. I'm seeing no further discussion, so please cast your votes. Yours didn't.
Push the right button.
Budget passes 7-0. Thank you very much for all your hard work, ladies.
Thank you. I had one more small sneak peek, if you will, that I wanted to mention. Certainly, this brings to a conclusion the fiscal year 20 budget development process, but unfortunately for budget, the budgeting process never quite ends. So we actually will continue work on fiscal year 20 almost immediately as we load the budgets into the system, and then we start monitoring the performance, actual expenditures against the planned budget to see how we're doing and that our estimates were solid and that we're on track for the fiscal year. In addition, we actually start looking ahead to fiscal year '21 almost immediately as well. And one of the most significant challenges that we have as we look forward to fiscal year '21, and we've mentioned this, really we've covered it a couple times in some of our budget presentations, is the transportation contract. We are in year 10, so the final year of our transportation contract with First Student. We have shared with the board that we had heard early information that the potential increase to our budget would be around 30% of our current pricing structure. And in the months and months of work that staff have been doing and performing related to this contract and researching, I've seen nothing that would indicate we're not going to see that kind of increase. So that is going to be a critical component as we kind of look forward to our fiscal year '21 planning. Certainly, you mentioned on the LOB, that may become a critical component as we're looking in the fiscal year '21 budget, which was precisely why we did not look to move on that rate, because we knew this potential item was looming. So certainly a tremendous amount of effort has been made by staff here in the last few months. I think we're getting pretty close to being able to bring forward a presentation to the board, hopefully here in the next few weeks, so that we can kind of vet these next steps appropriately. I think certainly the timelines related to a transportation decision will be critical, not only for budget planning processes, but certainly from day-to-day operational needs. So we'll hopefully have that for you here in September.
So just to clarify, our bus contract would start not the year that we're in now,
Right.
but the following
Right.
school year.
This is the final year, fiscal year '20 is the final year under the contract. So what we would be looking at would be for 7/1 of '20, the new fiscal year '21.
Yeah, and I know you've been visiting with different companies and
Right.
putting out RFPs and that kind of
Yes.
thing. But you're anticipating that it may go up as much as 30%?
Yes.
Okay. That's a healthy chunk. Thank you for forewarning us.
More to come.
Yes. Thank you very
Thank
much,
you.
ladies. Next item?